Have you ever had a day where your mind feels heavy, but you know that it goes deeper than that? For so many of us in our current lives, it's not just our thoughts that get tired, it's our spirit. It's that part of us that keeps caring, keeps hoping, keeps showing up, even when the world feels too heavy to hold.
We talk a lot about mental health, the stress, the coping, the overwhelm, and we talk about spirituality, purpose, love, and connection. But we rarely talk about the place where they collide.
That invisible space where your nervous system is on fire and your soul is starving at the same time. And when that disconnect happens, people rarely break because life gets too hard. They break because they became disconnected from themselves, from their purpose, from the knowing that they're here for something so much more.
Mental health alone can't fill that void, and spiritual bypassing won't heal the fractures that we've buried in our minds.
So today, we're asking the real question. What happens when you allow science to calm the mind and spirituality to nourish the soul? Allowing the two to work together instead of apart.
Can a whole new level of well-being become possible? In this episode, we're going to help you step into it and level up.
Hey, Heart Leader community, if you're liking this video, don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe. I think common language is a very important thing to kind of kick off with. So defining what we mean by the mental aspect of this and the spiritual aspect of this, right? What are we speaking to when we say that we're blending the mental health side of things and the spiritual health side of things? Because those are two very big buckets, right? We could go so many different ways. So if I were to ask you, what is the mental side of this and what is the emotional side of this? What would you say?
So for me, the mental side is it's all of our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings. And for the spiritual side, it's our purpose, our connection, our maybe even intention.
I would agree with that. When we talk about the mental side, we are looking at more of the behaviors. Where we look at the spiritual side, it has meaning kind of tied to those behaviors, if you will, right? So when we are able to tie it together, then we're able to do something I feel that is profound. And that to me is where we kick off this whole discussion. It's, okay, so why is it important if we're looking at this big picture of our our physical health is important, but to get to our physical feeling like we can even do anything with our physical health, we talk about our mental and our emotional, which is so key and prevalent. But then we separate out our spiritual side of it. And we act as though spiritual falls under only religious. But is spiritual religious? And are you only able to nurture that side of yourself if you are religious? We're going to answer that. And are they two separate buckets, or are they buckets that should actually be in one giant bucket, even though they are two separate things within themselves, the mental side of it, mental, emotional, and the spiritual, so that we can be healthy enough to desire to do something with our physical form and be physically healthy. So I think that's where we get into and why it's important to define what we mean by mental tied with emotional and then spiritual. And no, for us, spiritual doesn't mean religious, right? And how do we mean that?
When they're not separate and they are together, then you're able to address the symptoms and the root cause. And that's why it's so important. You know, it is easy in today's world to silo things,
Yeah.
right?
Of course,
Mhm.
it makes it easier to understand, right? We can put it in a box, we can put it on the shelf, and it's so cool.
Exactly, exactly. And so, but we're multidimensional beings. We're not just one note. And so that's why us understanding the tie and why it's important to pull it all together so they're not just addressing symptoms and still missing the root cause here and here and why we keep going in cycles and finding the same problems in a different way. That's where this is important. So when we see them together, we're addressing those symptoms and the root cause at the same time.
And speaking of symptom root cause, when we look at physical ailments, I think it's going to be important for us to talk about how we get to the mental, emotional, spiritual side of things and what impact that does have on our physical a little bit later in this conversation. Because if we neglect our our emotional, mental, spiritual, we would love to think, oh, as long as I'm taking care of my body, all is well. But is it? So let's get to symptom root cause there, but let's do it a little later in this conversation because I want to circle back to the definition side of things so that we are clear as clear can be around that mental, emotional, and spiritual side of things. Because as you pointed out, we like to have things neat and tidy so that we can understand, even though we're multidimensional beings, we are multifaceted, we still need the mental side of us needs the ability to have a definition so that we can assign an awareness around what you mean by what you say, right? And so for me, that's always important. Yes, I can get as woo woo as they come. I can get into the feeling, I can dive into the energies, but that doesn't mean that the mental side of me doesn't still need that aspect that says, give me the definition and tell me what you mean. So we've clearly defined up front what we mean by the mental side and the spiritual side, but there's still that side of, does spirituality mean religious? When you say spiritual, do you mean religious?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, I'm
Okay.
asking you.
Awesome. For me, it does not. And we actually do have a full podcast on this, spiritual but not religious. And so we'll make sure that's in the show notes here. But TLDR, to me, spirituality, you can be spiritual but not religious, but I think it's harder to be religious but not spiritual. You can have faith without religion, but not religion without faith. And you can have spirituality without religion, but not religion without spirituality.
And so clearly within that context or that structure, spirituality, when you boil it down, just means that you have a belief in something grander than yourself. That could be love. That could be nature. That could be the universe or source itself. But there's something that your spirit expands into. And so there is just this flow in your spiritual knowing that there is something that you are tied to and that you expand or you experience beyond self. Yes, you experience self, but you experience something beyond self as well. So there is something beyond self that's, whether you want to say grander than self or more than self. I always like the term that's more than only self. But if you look up spirituality, it will say grander than self. Religion comes with a certain dogma or doctrine or something that you are following. Spirituality doesn't necessarily have to, right? You can be spiritual and have zero doctrine tied to you whatsoever. And so, in clearly defining that up front, when we're saying to you, it is important that you honor your spiritual side, it is really that you honor your spirit, right? That you understand that your spiritual growth, your spiritual awareness, you knowing that you are more than just this physical body, along with the knowing that your mental, cognitive, and emotional side need care as well. When you separate those two out and you say, well, maybe in my healing, I just go for the mental, emotional side. And you put your spiritual nature off to the side. Well, that might not be getting you where you actually desire to go. And we want to talk about why. Hi, my name is Amber Mikesell. I am the author of this best-selling book, Silence Your Inner Critic, and I am so happy to announce that we have won 2 silver awards from the Book Fest. You can get your copy of this amazing best-selling award-winning book delivered right to your door by clicking the link below in the show notes. All you have to do is pay shipping, and you'll get not only the book, but $200 worth of free gifts, all delivered directly to you.
Do you feel that someone who might have a religious lens could still activate the spiritual side through that religious lens, whether it's through tradition or a dogma or some type of organized approach? Or do they need to actually see themselves even beyond that lens and look at them from their spirit, deep from their, like, okay, I have a soul or spirit, and that's the approach I'm looking at for.
I don't know that they're that separate. Maybe for some people, their religion is how they experience that spirituality, right? It's not for me to say one way or the other. So I don't know that they need to go beyond that religion. That religion is how they do that. For others, maybe it isn't how they do that, and they do need something different. It's really about understanding what is right for you. And if we look at it from just a real simple kind of side, right? The mental side is what helps us thrive, right? It helps us really understand what is going on in my life. How can I be mentally present and thrive in the life that I have? Where the spiritual side helps you understand why you're alive. Why am I in this world right now? What is my purpose? So, part of the reason, and this is getting us into the next step, like, why would you put them in the same bucket? Why do they need to be in the same box if we're going to put things in a box and put them on a shelf instead of 2 separate boxes? If we look at it as spirituality helps us understand why we're alive, and our mental emotional helps us thrive, well, don't we need our purpose and what helps us thrive to be united and together so that we are our optimal, we're thriving and surviving, and we know why we're here all in the same, and it's all coming together in that beautiful purpose?
They can fuel each other. And when there's intention behind that, they really do fuel each other.
Yeah.
So your understanding of who and why you are and how you show up in this world can breathe life into your ability to thrive, right? Into your feelings, your thoughts, your perspectives. And those perspectives can then help you understand your meaning, your purpose. And that's where there's like a beautiful circle between them. And so when we have more awareness of them as one thing instead of separate, separateness is usually what creates the idea, the feeling of isolation, right? And when you're isolated, you don't often feel like you're thriving, nor do you feel like you have immense purpose and meaning. And so when you're part of a greater whole, when you're connected, when you feel that oneness and you even pull these two together, then to me that allows them to move and flow within each other and support each other. And we all know that we feel much better when we feel supported.
And ultimately, to take it to the next level now, like we recognize that when we put them together, we can go from just survival and even if it's thriving to knowing why we're here and thriving. If we look at it more so to now we can even expand, right? From a spirit side of things, we look at ourselves as the spirit that we are. Then why did we come? Why are we living this life? If that's the question we start with, we're having some kind of a challenge, some kind of a mental block. And I always use myself because, hey, it's the only point of reference I have, right? I don't know what life is like for you. I don't know what life is like for anyone else outside of what you tell me, which is probably only a fraction of what's really going on for you. But I fully know what's going on for me. And when I was having times in my life where mentally life was challenging for me, and I was wondering, what the frick am I even doing here? Like, why am I on this planet? Because right now, it seems like I don't feel like I'm contributing to my fullest. I don't even know if anybody likes me. I have no doubt I'm not the only person in this world who's ever felt like that, right? I feel like people love me, but do they like me? Like why do I keep going through these motions every day? Right? And it didn't mean I was depressed. It meant that mentally I was having an existential moment where I was questioning my purpose. Well, if I'm having that mental moment and I don't have my spirituality to come in there and help me answer that, then where do I go from there? If I can't take those questions and then pivot and turn to my spirituality, whether that is through a religion or it's just a knowing that I am a spirit, I'm a soul, and I clearly came here for a reason, even if I don't understand what that reason is. Even if I am so clueless and in the dark because it hasn't been shown to me yet, that's where that faith comes in. And I have to be willing to go, okay, maybe I don't know what it is yet and it hasn't been shown to me, but I do know that I'm here for some expanded purpose so that I can know me better. And maybe this very existential moment I'm having is part of that and be willing to embrace it and then find tools for both my mental and my spiritual well being to nurture myself through that moment. Right? Because if I don't, then I am going to become depressed. And depression then leads to physical ailment, where now my body is going to physically be run down because I don't feel like doing anything. So there are all these things that start to happen. I'm estimating I'm not the only person that's ever had an existential moment questioning why in the world I'm freaking here, right? So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's important to recognize that there are ways to align these things. And it doesn't have to be like when we talk about spirituality, it doesn't have to be super woo-woo. And when we talk about mental health, it doesn't have to be, cognitive recalibration at a research level, right? This doesn't have to be, these aren't extremes, right? Um, Now we may need those, and that's, hey, we're all in different spaces.
yeah.
But sometimes just simple things like maybe someone who is focused more on religion or dogma might view it as prayer. Someone who's more spiritual or could even be atheist might call it gratitude, right? And in many ways, it's the same thing, just a different way that it's being presented. And so that is a great way to begin to align, just focusing on meditation, gratitude. You know, it's amazing how just those simple areas, like it pulls us back into abundance, right? And when we are together, like that is an aspect of abundance, where when we're separate, that's more of a lack mentality, right? And so we don't feel supported. But when we, whether we pray or we use meditation, or we're focusing on gratitude as just an energy, or just saying thank you, um, it's amazing how it can actually unite the mental health and the spiritual health together and be a step in that direction, uh, especially when we feel like we're in some kind of existential crisis.
And honestly, I've found personally, it is the simple processes, the simple things, and that I actually utilize most often. And when I make it simple, even in my thought process, I mean, clearly I can understand complex things. I have a degree in quantum physics, but it doesn't matter how good you are at understanding complex theories. The easier it is for you to break it down, the more likely you are to actually incorporate it, to hold on to it, to use it in your day. And so when we can start to look at things and go, okay, so I know mental helps me thrive, spiritual, know why I'm alive, physical carries me through both my alive and thrive. So it is my vehicle. Then I have to look at it as though I have to nurture all of these and none of them are separate. Because without my vehicle, I'm going nowhere. Without the ability to thrive, then I'm just getting by. And if I don't know why I'm alive, then what am I doing? So I need all of these in one compact box. I can't really separate them out, but key component, at least two of those have to be in the same box so that, and this is getting into why we have to have them together to support the physical. If I'm not looking at my spiritual and my mental, emotional together, then again, my physical, the vehicle that's carrying me through this lifetime, it's going to start to get run down because I'm going to stop caring, right? I don't know why I'm here. I have zero desire to thrive, then I'm certainly not going to take care of the very vehicle that's carrying me through this life. And so we have to really focus on breaking it into very simple component parts and looking from top down, from spirit, the very part of us that said, hey, sign me up. I want to go. However you want to look at it, whatever your belief system is, there's some part of you that signed up for this journey in some capacity. And so if you look at it from that top down or even bottom up, if you want to look at it from the physical coming back up, you're taking good care of your body. But if you're neglecting your mental health or your spirit, then either direction you go, you're going to have a breakdown if you're not taking care of your mental, your thrive, your mental, cognitive, emotional side of things, or your spirit.
Hey, I'm Austin Yule, co-host of the Heart Leader podcast and one of the founders of Suivera, the organization that powers the Heart Leader podcast. And I'm so excited to share today that not only did we get nominated for an Anthem Award this year, but we actually won bronze in diversity, equity, inclusion for best use of AI tech We're so excited. This is such a unique project. And this is all focused on heart centered technology. If this interests you and you'd love to learn more, click the link below. And we'd love to see you get involved, whether it's being part of the community or helping us shape this incredible project. Makes sense to me. And yeah, I've spent a lot of my time especially in my 20s, where I focus a lot on the physical, but not really on the emotional, mental, and spiritual. And I felt completely misaligned. And I kind of flipped it the other way through, late 20s and early 30s, where I was more focused on spiritual, mental, and emotional, and I kind of let the body side fall to the wayside. So, now as someone who's really devoted to the whole and practicing all aspects, I can definitely attest to the fact of how integrated they all are. But I think what would really, really help, I think me and maybe some of the others out there who are listening, is like as a founder of an all faiths spiritual organization, what is some of the science behind spirituality's impact? Because that might be a really great place, almost like a North Star to start. Because I'm sure there's a lot of individuals out there who are like me, where, I felt like no matter how much I focused on my body or the emotion or my thought process, I felt lost. I felt misaligned. I felt like I didn't have a purpose. I felt so disconnected. And so I was like, man, it's got to be something, I don't know if it's religious. I don't know if it's not religious, but I do, when I hear the term spiritual, I feel something, I feel some connection to that. And I feel that I am lacking in this area. And so some kind of like North Star, somewhere that we can kind of get like a point of direction. And I think sometimes having the science behind it keeps away the woo-woo feel. And even though a lot of the science supports the woo-woo, it's a good place for people to maybe, if we are stuck in our head, that maybe we can understand a little bit from the heart and and meld that the logic and the logic and intellect with the heart and compassion together.
I can definitely see that. And I mean, honestly, we all need a little woo woo, right?
Yes,
Just because it helps us get back into our imagination
I love that.
and remember that even when we were kids, we needed that creative part of us to help us grow. So if we desire to keep growing as adults, we still need that woo woo part to keep us in our imagination so that it actually does support our mental mind frame, right? Without imagination, we do start to cognitively and mentally decline. So we need woo woo. We want to talk about science? There you go. Now you can choose your woo, right? It doesn't have to be the kind of woo that is the spiritual woo that can really turn some people off that you were bringing up. But we all need to be able to suspend some level of belief in order to reconnect with that imagination part of us. So, you want to talk about science? There's some science to that. The other thing I would say is there's so much out there. I'm not going to point to a bunch of studies because we've done this through so many of our podcasts leading up to this one. But between meditation and prayer, just being able to regulate your body through breath work, through meditation, and get into a more harmonized and balanced place, you have not only the endorphin release that helps you create more happy hormones and be in this beautiful place within your own self, but you also get those mental boosts where, because of those happy hormones that you get, you also have these moments of mental clarity, right? So that mental emotional balance that comes when you practice breath work more often, you're able to get into what many in meditation will call the gap. And that gap, even though it's just a tiny little second for many of us, it allows you that space when heightened emotions come up. And You feel like you're going to react at someone. Suddenly you find you get this little gap space where you can choose not to react, but instead take that breath and respond to them. And that can change a lot of what occurs in your physical reality. So there's a ton of science, especially we point to heart math all the time, but a lot of universities are starting to do that studies around meditation like crazy because there is such a difference that happens with the way that the synapse in your brain fires when you do meditation or dedicated prayer regularly. Now, when we talk about the spiritual side of it, just simply believing and having an awareness that there is something beyond self that you are willing to expand into, that knowing, that simple trust has an impact on the way that you view the world too. And that willingness to view the world as something grander or larger than self actually also has a difference in how it impacts serotonin levels and gratitude. And when your gratitude shifts, of course, so does again all of those happy hormones because you see things that you're grateful for. You've expanded out. You're looking at the world differently. Suddenly you're grateful for things in the world differently because you see it as something grander than self. When you're grateful for things in the world, serotonin levels actually increase, better night's rests, all of these wonderful things versus when we're so closed in on ourselves and we're stressed all the time and we're just running in circles inside of our own mind and we're in that fight, flight, freeze mode because all we can do is view life in a much smaller little box. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, this is so important to view it from this perspective. Um, I love how you said is about there is some woo woo out there, and that is like we can choose our woo. I think I
Choose your
choose your
woo.
woo, and I feel like one of those that science is definitely diving into and sharing more information about is about frequency. And we talk about how when we are aligned or we feel aligned mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of that, that there's like a frequency that we vibrate at as a high vibe. Is what it's maybe it's called, right?
That's actually starting to drive me nuts. But
Yeah,
yeah.
or the low vibe, right? But the reason I'm bringing it up is because there is some real aspects of this, and that's
Do you mind if I go on just a one moment tangent here?
oh sure,
Has
sure,
nothing to do with it, but
yeah,
anybody who's listening to this, if you don't want to hear this part, skip
mhm,
ahead, get to the rest. But this whole high vibe, low vibe in the spiritual woo woo world being used to create a hierarchy and separation, that's gotta eventually stop. Talk about choosing your woo. Come on, if you're in a spiritual realm and you're saying that you believe in unity, but you're using high vibe and low vibe to create a hierarchical structure where you're suddenly better than someone else because you're a high vibe, then you're not walking your talk and something needs to change. So just calling that out. Don't use high vibe, low vibe to create hierarchy. It's all energy. Energy just is. It is not a hierarchical structure. It's a scientific term. Stop using it to create separation. Okay,
oh,
done.
yeah. I mean, mic drop on that, and good context for what I'm going to bring forward.
Okay,
And
good.
the reason why I'm bringing it forward is because of harmony versus disharmony.
Yay.
And so oftentimes we hear harmony when we know what that means, right? Especially in music, it's multiple notes coming together. And when you hear harmony, it's like, oh my gosh, it feels amazing. It sounds amazing. It's multiple things working together in alignment, right? And the reason why I'm bringing up disharmony, because what is another word for disharmony? It's noise. There's a lot of noise that we ourselves are creating, that others are creating, that we're allowing in. There's just a ton of noise. And noise, another word for noise is misalignment. Because if it's not in harmony and it's not in alignment, then noise would be misalignment. That's the nails on a chalkboard board. It just you cringe.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, it's misaligned. Doesn't have to be bad, doesn't have to be good. And harmony doesn't have to be bad or good. Like it just is. Right. And so the reason why I'm bringing these things up is because if when we are viewing each one thing separate, like the mental, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual, we are unintentionally creating noise and misalignment between each one. And then we wonder why we have disharmony and
Yes.
then why we don't feel aligned.
Hmm.
And so, what this is all about here, and the science that you're bringing forward, and just this discussion, and is to understand that this separation is an illusion. And so, when we start to pull them together and we create the harmony as if each aspect is a note at a different octave, kind of playing at the same time, then we can start to feel aligned. We can feel in harmony. We can feel connected. And so that's could be a great way to understand, okay, here's some woo, but also here's some science.
Yes. And to me, it's saying woo and saying science, or even saying spirituality and saying science. That's all the same as well to me. We want to create these layers, these dimensionalities, and they're dimensional layers to things. But all of it comes back to energy, right? It's how we're experiencing different layers of reality, however we want to label it. And I personally think science is woo too. It's just more factual woo because we have means of measuring it. Spiritual woo, we just don't have means of measuring it yet.
Right. But there's plenty of theories in science that aren't measured yet, which is no different than imagination.
Yes.
Right. And so, to your point, there's plenty of woo in science as well. And that's what helps us keep moving forward.
Yes, exactly. And it's beautiful, just like what we're talking about here, right? The desire for us to break everything down as humans and put it in these boxes that we can understand. And our mental, emotional is separate from our religious, spiritual. And so we go to see a doctor that will help us with our mental, emotional. And that doctor knows nothing really about our religious, spiritual. And then we go to see a different doctor and maybe even a personal trainer who's helping us with our physical, or dietitian. And we don't even cross share all of the information across what's happening with our physical with every person underneath of that. So our personal trainer may not know everything that's going on with our doctor, may not know everything that's going on with a nutritionist if you happen to have one. And then they certainly don't know what's going on with your therapist if you have a therapist. And if you're talking to a pastor or your rabbi, they likely don't know anything that's going on with any of those others. So you've categorized everything so perfectly in all of these little boxes. But you're not a box. You're a person. And you're definitely not that neatly crafted. All of those bleed into each and every one of the other. And if you have someone assisting you, they really kind of need to understand. You would need at least one person who is well versed in the multidimensionality of you, who can help you look across and say, hey, did you notice that what this person over here said kind of ties to what this person over here said? And so maybe that spiritual block is part of what's feeding in to your physical block over here. And maybe you should feel into that a little more deeply in a meditation or in prayer to understand what might be the link between those two because, yeah, dimensionally they're a little different, but there's clearly an energetic tie because energy doesn't know that it needs to stop at a dimensional layer. It's just going to keep on going, right? So that's the thing with the science part of it. Scientifically, if you understand energy, it doesn't just stop because, well, there's the dimensional layer. No, it's you're one being, so I'm just going to keep on flowing, right?
Absolutely. Well, that just kind of goes in alignment with, rigidity versus fluidity, right? If we're in a box and we're having all these different separate areas, that's rigid in nature, right? Which is oftentimes you don't say, "Oh, I had such a rigid harmony." Like that doesn't work. It's like, no, I was flowing. Like when you hear about, a
I was in the
harmony, I was in
flow.
the flow, right? I'm not in the rigidness. It's like, so it's good to just be able to kind of pull back and look at it from these different perspectives and start to see, where are we unintentionally creating these separations in our lives, and how are we actually kind of in our own way creating this rigidity where we're seeking fluidity, we're seeking harmony, but we're using practices that actually support disharmony rather than harmony. We're going into things with the intention of being whole, but using practices that promote separateness.
Yes,
And so again, no wonder we're in disharmony.
100%. And so the key here, it doesn't have to be that you have a medical person who's looking across all of them. You could be the person for yourself that's willing to sit and look across all facets of what is occurring. But at a minimum, if you're not looking across all of them, sometimes it's easier to start with two. And that's why we recommend the mental, emotional, and spiritual. Start there. We're not saying physical isn't important. We're not saying all aspects of your conscious beingness isn't important. We're saying start with at least these two because these two coupled together are so strong together and so married together that if you can start here, it's kind of the thread that pulls and will help you across all aspects.
Absolutely. And so, if someone wants to take a step in that direction, what would be a really good tool that's something simple that someone could do on a just simple practice every day that actually can move the needle a little bit towards alignment of body, mind, emotion, and spirit?
You did a practice a couple of podcasts ago, I think, where it was kind of a heart centered meditation. And I love those so much because it draws our awareness back into back into the center. There's a reason our heart is here. It's kind of the center point of our beingness and it gets us balanced again. So, a tool, I use it all the time. But when I really desire to understand the energy flowing through my body and how quickly energy not only can culminate, but actually expand out of my body, and how it really does not know that, oh, wait a second, no, I'm supposed to stop here. It doesn't. It actually, energy knows no bounds. It just keeps going until it truly runs into a you shall not pass, you shall not pass place, right? Or it dissipates because it's lost all of the energy that it has created. Well, you know, it'll be a lot before love runs out of steam. So, I use a 3-minute meditation where I inhale, kind of using the same flow, inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 6, exhale for a count of 8. But as you follow that breath in, you inhale Follow the breath in for 4. As you hold the breath for a count of 6, your hand is on your heart center. And with your eyes gently closed, you just feel that energy starting to circle in your chest. And then as you exhale, on the exhale for a count of 8, you allow that energy to start building. And as that energy, that love energy in you starts to build, you allow it to expand into your chest and then through your body. And as it expands into your body, you allow it to move out of your body and into all of the space around you. And so inhaling for 4, holding for 6, exhaling for 8, you start to feel that love energy take over not only your whole body and the whole room around you, but suddenly it expands past the room and into like the whole city. And next thing you know, the state, and you just keep going and going. And you set your timer for 3 minutes. And before you know it, within that 3 minutes, the more you practice this, you can fill up the entire world with the energy that you start to feel in your chest, and then go beyond the world and into our galaxy, beyond our galaxy into the universe. It's incredible how much you can start to feel just the love energy you create build the more you practice it within a 3-minute time frame and spill over into every living thing, every planet, everything within the universe. So we'll put this, I'll actually record it. I'll do a recorded guided meditation, and we'll include it where you can go on to, we'll actually put it right here on the Heart Leader podcast YouTube channel. Somebody wants to listen to it, and practice it 3 minutes a couple times a week and start to notice how the energy just expands and you become the energy of love. It's pretty freaking wicked.
It's such a wonderful practice, and one I've used a lot, and it's really made a difference for me. And anytime you're able to work Gandalf into the conversation, it's very magical, pun intended. So I appreciate that very, very much, my love.
I can't help it. Thanks.
I love it. Yeah, we will definitely. I love the idea of having this available on the Heart Leader podcast. So we'll have that set up and we'll add it as a link in there, and we'll put it in the description so anyone for free can just go ahead and listen and allow their love to make an impact in this world, in this galaxy, in this universe, and just let it almost like an avalanche of love.
Yeah. Loka sumasta sukino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere be happy and free.
Mm.
That's the feeling that you'll be sharing everywhere.
Love it.
So ultimately, the question you always have to ask at the end of one of these podcasts is, why the frick does this matter? Right? Why did you just spend part of your day listening to anything that we had to say? Right? So why would you say that this matters?
Harmony and personal responsibility. Mm-hmm.
Those don't usually get used in the same
Yes.
sentence together.
Well, personal responsibility is often used in like more like an almost negative or like a blame factor.
Yeah.
But its true essence, I feel, is actually more centered in harmony, in the one's ability to respond to whatever is going on in their life. And so when we feel in disharmony, our ability to respond dwindles, which is what creates chaos. It creates separation. It creates anger and fear and resentment and all these things that actually aren't serving us, that are just perpetuating the cycle of disharmony. When we have an understanding of the harmony of our body, mind, emotion, and spirit, and we take personal responsibility to be our own advocate for that, then all we're simply doing is, again, it's not putting blame, it's actually very empowering. And it's reminding us of the incredible power we have within ourselves to be aware of all aspects of our multidimensional self and interact with the world and choose to bring more peace, more love, more connection, more oneness, more intention, more purpose, more thrivingness, more aliveness into all that we do and all that we are in this world. I can't think of a much more beautiful thing than that. And so to me, that's where harmony and personal responsibility is exactly why it matters.
I can absolutely align with that. And it allows us, you know, for me, why it matters is it allows us to, as people, and myself included, with the need mentally to have things in a box or category labels so that I can make sense of it. It doesn't take that away from me, but it doesn't have me doing it so much so that I'm keeping my mental, emotional in one box and my spirituality in another box. Those two, at least those two, need to be together. And now I can at least understand why it's important to have them together, because separating them out, I'm keeping my purpose from my thriving. And if I don't know my purpose, then I can't thrive. And if I'm thriving without a purpose, then am I really thriving? Right. And so I need to be able to, at a minimum, have my spirituality and my mental, emotional together. Now, if I'm willing to take the next big step, then let's just throw the whole cluster in a box together so that I can see that I am one whole being, and my physical, my mental, emotional, my spiritual, at a minimum, those three could even go together. And I could really benefit by having those in a box together. If I'm really willing to go, I could go even broader and take my entire consciousness into the expanse. But, that's a podcast for a different day. So, why it matters is to really understand that energy isn't flowing through me differently. So, it's going to come through and it's going to hit me like a ton of bricks. And emotions are energy, feelings are energy, food that I eat is energy. All of these things are energy. And if it's not going to just stop because, I've put things in a box, then maybe I need to rethink my boxes.
I love it. That's a beautiful way to put it. Absolutely. So quick recap.
Yep.
So mental health and spirituality, pair them together, and that equals wellness.
Just a broader sense of wellness.
Broader sense of wellness. There we go. Tempting to distill this just very simply.
Down. Yes.
Awesome. There is science that backs spirituality's impact. And that's everything from meditation to forgiveness and compassion, to frequency, like we talked about,
and choosing your woo.
And then we have a beautiful 3-minute holistic heart meditation that aligns body, mind, emotion, spirit. If you're seeking, whether you're just starting to take this step into aligning, or you're someone who is highly aligned, there is always a reason to have another practice to get you deeper into that connection point. And so we'll have that available for free in the description.
And if you are looking to take this to the next level, take a moment and head on over to suivera.org. The link is in the description below. We have a community called Relationship Evolution where you can dive deeper into the relationship with self and relationship with others. We are kicking off first quarter here of this year, And you can sign up for the wait list right there. But while you're here, take a moment, give us a like, a subscribe. It helps us know that we're making content that is meaningful for you. And you can always share it with your friends too. Then take a moment, look around. We've got tons of other great podcasts right here on the Heart Leader Podcast.